So on this week's episode of Be More Super, the podcast, we've got another treat. I'm so excited. My childhood wouldn't be the same without this guest from the Mighty Ducks and many other great projects. It's Matt Doherty. Matt, welcome to the show, sir.
That's a great intro, Brian. I should hire you to just kind of follow me down the street. Because in America, it would be great because you just, you sound a little different than we do out here in Los Angeles. So,
you know what?
It would be great. Yeah.
I did have a chance years ago on the possibility of moving to America, but it didn't work out. And I regret it because I've been to America quite a lot.
And now they stuck you in this black box with this, like, it feels like you're in a volcanic version of the Avengers. It's great. It's
yeah.
Really,
which Avenger would I be? I wouldn't be very good, to be fair. I wouldn't. I sleep all day and I'm awake all night. But going over, before we go over your amazing childhood in Hollywood and obviously what you've been doing recently, the last 2 years have been quite challenging, to say the least, with everything that's been going on. If it's not the pandemic, it's forest fires, and if it's not that, it's loads of other things. I mean, how have you kept positive and moving forwards over these past 2 years?
Optimism. I think hope is born. I don't want to get all Tolkien-esque, but hope is born during dark times. I mean, if we didn't have dark times, we wouldn't have hope. So I love the way you said that, and I think to stay inspired, community. I believe, call me idealistic, I think, making some art kind of does help change the world. I believe I've been gifted with a tremendous ability to make people laugh over the years. I went through a phase where I was like, I wanted to be taken seriously as an artist, and I still do, but I realized like making people laugh is a tremendous service. And then also like the fingerprint identity of being a duck is, in a way, kind of overcoming all that. The reason why the movie stays so long is because it's about these basic principles that I think we lose, and then we go through trouble in life collectively, universally, and maybe we remember that we do fly together.
I mean,
I thought I was just coming on the show because I was going to throw my hat in to run from prime minister, but I guess.
That is, you know what? Honestly, it is like a Monty Python sketch right now. Literally,
Great.
We don't know what's going on. Apparently, this time next week we'll have another prime minister. The country is going to pot. We're slowly turning into a third world country. Gas prices are. I don't know if it's
like
the same
us.
in the US. I mean, my gas prices and electricity has gone up 5 times. I'm paying five times more a month now for gas and electric. And the thing I'm more concerned about is the elderly and families with kids. These kids are innocent, but yet, we're struggling to heat our homes and put food on the table. It is shocking. There's got to be a U-turn eventually, like a reset button. But yeah, you couldn't make it up. 45 days, I think she was in her position as prime minister, and now she's gone. So fingers crossed.
I've kept things in my fridge longer than that. It's and I think that also is the idea that change happens incrementally, and then and then it happens big, and I believe that you starting this thing and letting people's voices be heard and it's a powerful thing in this world, I think.
Definitely. And this show, it's a bit of escapism for even those little moments from the madness that's in the world right now. And that's partly why I did it for myself as well, for my sanity, my mental health, because it is stressful being a father, being a husband, with everything going on. But life is for living. We don't have any reruns. We've got to be thankful for what we've got. And keep going forwards. So not only are we going to explore your early life in your career, but I'm excited to discuss your journey in life after the Mighty Ducks, just like a butterfly from a cocoon. So what
Yeah,
pushed you?
it'd be like Proust. We'll look at our whole.
Yeah, exactly. So what pushed you? So if you can remember back, I know this is going to be quite hard because I can't
Oh
remember
boy.
3 days ago. So if you can remember, like when you first were starting in the career that you was going into, what pushed you into the industry, as you were very young when you started?
Oh wow. Yeah, I was 9.
Wow.
Um, yeah, right. I I played Sherlock Holmes,
Awesome.
which is really really funny, right? And I did like a what I thought was an RP dialect, right? And I borrowed my dad's coat, and it was, and I wanted to be taken seriously so bad. This is so funny. I can't believe I'm telling you this. As an actor, it was like a second grade play or something, and it was Hound of the Baskervilles, and I was playing Sherlock Holmes, and I only did it because um, I saw my brothers do it. I saw my brother
Mm.
do a play, and I think I kind of secretly, being the youngest, was like, well, I can do that, you know, like if I'm really honest.
Mm.
And I got into this play, and I thought I was going to be this serious detective. And it was like this after school thing, right? It was like 20 minutes long or whatever. Who knows if I'm remembering it correctly, but we remember what we remember. And I was going to be really serious, but then I kept tripping over my coat again because it was so large, and I kept like falling and kind of making an ass of myself in a way, like accidentally, but I wanted to be so serious. And everybody started laughing. And I think that kind of was like, oh, this is cool, this is fun. And then I just saw an ad in the paper. I did. No one else did in my family. What kind of 9-year-old sits and reads the paper? And I think I only did it because Michael J. Fox did it on TV, and I was like, okay, I saw Michael J. Fox do this, and he was one of my heroes, and still is.
Mm.
And like I read the paper, and there was an article for like redheads, and so before I had some gray hair and stuff, I was all red, and I had freckles, and so that was the big thing, and like they have that all American look. I didn't know that, and so I went down, and they were like, they need redheads for this audition in Chicago, and I just looked at this article and was like, I'll go, and I told my mom, and she just looked at me like, you want to go to this thing? I was like, yeah, it's an audition. Where does that come from? I don't know. And then I went, and I think the only reason we went to it is because my mom and her best friend wanted to go to the mall, like in town, like kind of like the high street of Chicago. You guys call it the high street, right? So
yeah.
This was like, we're going down here, and we're going to go down, and it was like going to be Christmas time and stuff. So like, you go look at the lights, and I think that's literally why my mom agreed to it, so she can go shopping. And then I ended up like going all the way through, and I ended up meeting the great Gary and Penny Marshall, where, he started Happy Days. He's been in a bunch of movies, writing and directing. He was actually in Big, right? Which is a great movie, a legend, him and his sister Penny. And it was his movie Overboard. And I didn't get the part, but he told me to get an agent kid. And so I looked in the phone book, and my mom and I, she had heard the same thing, and we looked in the phone book, and then I booked my first commercial, and it was crazy. Just circumstance. I had a manager for a long time who said that the industry kind of chose me. And I think that's kind of true. Like the way things just started opening up and just were like that way. And I think the timing was perfect, but I couldn't have predicted any of it,
I mean, back when movies were magical and the world wasn't drowning in content like it is now, we had one team that literally the world was behind. We quacked, we flapped our arms and yelled at the screen, and that was the Mighty Ducks. I mean, it's just an astonishing franchise that literally has tested time, is loved by many parents around the world, and it's just got so many great values, so many things that about that movie that everyone can relate to. So that audition process for that movie, I mean, obviously I'm asking a lot now, asking, can you remember? I mean, what was it like to, audition for a Disney film? And did it feel like hard work, working on the Mighty Ducks?
Oh God, no. That's a great question. I love the way you centered on the values and all of it. I mean, like, again, none of us knew what we were doing. We didn't know we were making a trilogy, something that they would make a franchise of a hockey team, reinvent a sport, then make it inspire like a generation of people to play the sport, and then come back around and have a TV show. I mean, we didn't know any of that. I didn't. I don't even think if we had Jordan Kerner, the original producer, who was a dear colleague and mentor, and I think if you even asked him, it would be the same thing. That all I know is the movie got greenlit in record time, which was really, really funny. And that the early version of the movie was much darker, which is really funny. And then they found this beautiful mix where, like you said, it appeals to the parents and it appeals to the kids. And so they kind of like invented that magic spot where, all I know is I needed to get to Minneapolis, Minnesota, which is in the Midwest. So for you UK people, it's kind of in the middle here. And it's really cold. And I'm from Chicago, and it was like we had to get up there. And I remember being like, my mom was teaching school. My dad was stuck at a job that he was about to lose, ironically enough. So he was caught in the great layoff in the 90s. So I ended up having this career-changing life experience, and it lined up with the same moment when my father lost his job. It was a weird time. And but we couldn't find somebody to take me to Minnesota, So my brother John hopped on a plane with me, and he was I think he was working at the steel mills at the time, and we went up there, and I still remember it was a great trip. And then I actually originally auditioned for Fulton, which is really ridiculous because Brian, I'm 5'5" today, right? 5'5". So I was tiny then, right? I was like, I was this, and but somehow they gave me the sides for Averman, and I made everybody laugh, and then I came home and I got the part, and I don't think, and then we were like, I guess I should have told them I actually did know how to play hockey because I lied, and then they kind of knew we were lying. So they had built this hockey camp for like 4 weeks. So the first thing we did was get paid, money. Like it's just, I mean, now it's like probably like pennies to what people paid now, but like it was a lot of money to go play hockey for 4 weeks and go to school. And it was just like, and that still is one of my favorite experiences. If I close my eyes and you ask me if we can remember hockey camp, was the way like we became family and friends, and we were like family. When you spend that many hours together. So the movie was just this like icing on the cake after that.
I mean, they don't make movies like this anymore. There's something about it, you know, when you rewatch it as an adult, literally everything is the quality of the picture, the music, just everything about it. It's like literally, it's like having a warm hug, because they were the best times of our lives. And we were discussing before we started recording about, obviously we both suffered with a stammer, and I got bullied quite a lot. So I used to escape to inside movies. So if it wasn't Superman the movie, it was the Mighty Ducks. If it wasn't the Mighty Ducks, it was Best of the Best with Eric Roberts. It was films that literally made you feel like you could achieve anything. And that's what I like about the Mighty Ducks, because it's the perfect underdog story,
Yeah.
and it's achieved so much, even if you don't like hockey, because I've never watched hockey. We've got a great hockey team.
It's not known as a UK thing, I guess.
No, I mean we've got a great hockey team in Nottingham, the Nottingham Panthers, which are apparently very, very good. And you know, I feel that you don't need to be a sports person to actually enjoy it, because the characters, I think, outshine the fact it's a hockey-based movie. I mean, your character as Averman is actually mine and my wife's favourite character. And I'll tell you why. Is because literally every moment that you're on screen, we are waiting for that classic one-liner. You know, that funny comment. I mean, did you have any input in those lines, or was it, straight from the script?
It was the first one was straight from the script, but as we went on, we had a little bit more, like Keenan, who played Russ, right? And Sean and I definitely had the ability to add a little bit, which maybe cause a little, okay, we got to go on, because once you give somebody a chance to make I even think Hamlet was talking, don't, like, you fools, don't go too far, right? It's like, yeah. So, but no, why would you mess with, like, I mean, Steve Brill wrote. I mean, not a lot of people know, like, him and Adam Sandler and Mark Maron, these incredible comedic geniuses. We're all like in a 1-bedroom apartment together, like, coming up. They were all like, cutting their teeth. And so, like, you got, I mean, Steve he's really good at being funny. So why would you mess with it? And I think there's a rule that if, like, you try to be funny and you try to improve upon what's already there, you can go to comedy hell. Yeah. But I also think that when you said the underdog story, like, what makes this so special is it's about fair play. It's about not needing to win, and doing things for the love of it. And these are things I think we forget in life. And I think that's why it's so perennial, is because who doesn't relate to that, and as our journey into becoming adults and whatnot, like, you lose touch with these things that are so pure.
And this is why it's great to rewatch,
and then you rediscover. Yeah,
and this is why
that's why. Yeah, that's why it stays.
And obviously, I asked Marguerite when she was on the show about this, because Emilio Estevez is a legend, and at that time he was at his peak. I mean, what was he like to work with? And apparently, I don't know if this is true, Marguerite said when you went to your boot camp, that apparently Emilio was the worst at skating. I don't know if you want to agree, but that's what she said. But I mean, what was he like to work with, side by side, because you share some great scenes together?
I think the rule of many teams is you don't throw your coach under the bus, or the skipper, or the gaffer, as you say, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Emilio was I just love the man. I think he's taught me so much about what's really important in this life, and the principles. There's an old saying in Hollywood, and I'm sure it's probably like that, over there, or doing theater on, the West End, that, like, they say the top of the call sheet, which is the number one person on the show, sets the standard for the whole crew. And if that person's a bit of a jerk, it can be tricky. And, his standard of what he was and how he represented himself and what he taught us was, like, I would not be alone. I mean, Eldon has talked about, we were all trained, kind of like, when you're a rookie coming up, and I guess sports do that, where the old DOG dudes, they'll tell you how to behave. And they just, by their example, and Emilio just does that. And he was at the time, one of the largest movie stars in the world, and he wanted to make a movie for his kids. So it was, I mean, it's And so when we heard that like he was going to be our coach, there was this like, oh, well, what is he going to do? And then he did. He showed up and he sprung us for school the first time we met him. Like we were all going to school in the locker room at the hockey rink where we played, right? That's where we would go to school. And we had heard we were going to meet Emilio. And everybody was like, oh, yeah, we're going to meet Emilio. And he came in and he had evidently arranged it with our teachers. So we were going to extra school the last few days and we were wondering why, that he was going to spring us. And he got a bus and he took us to this like video arcade, like place with go-karts, and like just paid for us to go have fun for 2 hours.
Wow.
And like my first memory was being go-karts with Emilio Estevez and getting bumped into. He's like going around bumping into all of us, like with like this I was like, this guy's a big kid. Oh wow. And it made it cool, and that just set the standard, and he's just a man of tremendous principle, just like his father.
And then obviously we quack forward many years, and Disney has given us a great show, which is Mighty Duck Game Changers, which is currently showing its second season right now. What was it like to get the OG gang back together to go back onto that show?
During a pandemic.
Yes, during a pandemic, definitely.
Yeah, I don't know if we all trauma bonded because like we were stuck in hotel rooms for 14 days and you couldn't leave, right? Because when you enter another country, and we were coming from, America where we don't wash our hands, and we were going to Canada, and you literally didn't leave your hotel room. And then we had 5 days until we had to work. So we all did exactly like we did when we were 14, 15 years old, and hung out in Eldon's hotel room and just sat around together and talked. And I think the best part about that whole experience was like we were just spending time. Marguerite had her kid with her. And it was just this sense that here we are, like at that time it was 28 years later. It's 30 years later today, right? And they're like, this is like family. We're being reunited. It was so, when we met the kids and this is their story, Game Changers is about them. It's about this time, right? We've told our story. That was a powerful moment, like to go and sit down and realize you're like the Bombay. And like, I'm older than Emilio was when he did Ducks 1. And that blew my mind, right? And we all sat down for lunch. And I sat down with lunch with some of the second generation. And we just talked, and I let them talk, and they were so excited. And then we played hockey together, and it was just magic, man. It's just, you just talk about a magic experience.
Did you give any of them any advice?
Let me offer this up. I'll offer one more thing. So then I watched the assistant director. This is, I guess, what it means to be an adult. And we were trying to corral everybody together to shoot something. But there's a puck, and there's a game, and they're teenagers at best. And so they're all playing in the corner, and it's like, come on, we got to shoot. And they didn't want to go. And I suddenly saw what we must have done to the crew for 3 movies. I was like, oh yeah, it's really hard to corral kids when they're playing a game. And but it was actually so great to see that, because that's what it was about for them.
And it must have been really nice to see Emilio again, many moons later, being on screen again, reminiscing about the good old days, which is fantastic. I mean, did you give any of the youngsters any words of wisdom, any advice? Because being a young actor, I can imagine it being quite difficult. I don't know if it's easier now to be a child actor compared to many moons ago.
I made myself available. I think we all did. We were like, hey, if anything comes up, you can let us know. And I thought that was the best way to do that, because everybody has their own experience with all this stuff. And I can't imagine what it must be like to, be young, developing, and in this time of social media, right? and all the extra work when you're just this, teenager.
Mm.
But it looked like they were all handling. They had a real good sense of community. I just loved the fact that we got to, talk with Emilio about just how much our lives had changed and how much him and we all had a similar experience. What he meant to us in our lives, the directions of how we led it, and how, like, in a weird way, we're just like the characters we played. We were changed by Bombay.
And did you ever keep anything from those movies?
Oh yeah.
In your personal
I
collection?
wish I would have been the thief, because I'm from, like, I didn't steal anything from Ducks 1, because I was just so, like, I was hanging my laundry up and going, I'm so lucky to be here, it's like, I don't want, but by Ducks 2 or 3, I'm like, stealing stuff, it's like, I have a jersey from, I have original Mighty Ducks 2 Ducks jersey that we wore at the end. I have my glasses.
Wow. From
Ducks 2 and 3, and I actually still play hockey, and I get made fun of because I have some gear that I still use. And gear's gotten lighter. And when I first went out there and played, I was still playing with a wooden stick, and they called me OG, and I had these old skates on. But, like, I finally upgraded a lot of my gear. But I literally was using some of my hockey gear from the movies.
That is awesome. And those jerseys, because my plan is that when you guys come over, which we'll speak about later, I'm going to get myself a jersey and get you all to sign it. I cannot wait. I
think that's a great idea.
Oh, you know what? I just would get you all to sign everything. Pucks, sticks, you name it. I'll just theme the house. I'm sure the wife will be fine with that.
I was gonna say, you might want to clear that with your wife, man.
Yeah, she gets a bit emotional when it comes down, because I collect film props as well. So the sponsors of my show is called Prop Store, and they auction and deal with screen use props and costumes, and they go for a lot of money, like literally a lot of money, which is just fantastic. But you get to see some amazing pieces. So obviously, after the Mighty Ducks, how difficult is it for a working child actor to leave such a well-known franchise and continue working? Because, with a lot of child actors, I mean, I've had Joey Kramer on the show that was in Flight of the Navigator, and he's such a great guy as well to chat to, and he's had his demons, and he's persevered and battled those, which is great. And it's the same with Sean. It's so nice to see Sean Wise back to where he is now, and unfortunately with the press following his life over the years, it's quite nice to see that he's a lot better. So how difficult was it to leave such a great franchise because of the expectations of you as an actor, a child actor, to move on to other things?
I mean, wow. Yeah, I mean, I will write a book one day about all of it.
Yes.
And because I have strong opinions on the subject. And also just an experience. I've had all those experiences, I mean, I've had my share of darkness and demons and things I've had to walk to. And for me, one of my saving graces during those years, because I think when you're young and you think this is real, you think this is, even if you have a, like they say, like a good family or this, or you've been given certain tools or whatever, it's still just not real. It's an illusion. And I think that when you wake up and you're no longer cute, and you don't really have many life skills, it can be a chasm for a lot of us. And the union tries to help with young performers as they reach a certain age, and there's a lot of stigma around it. I always like to say that, like, I saw the evidence. I saw that people either ended up robbing blockbusters or became directors and writers, like Ron Howard. I said, well, blockbusters are a video store that's out of business. So I think maybe I'll try to do this other thing. I've been just blessed to have some really great mentors who, and I've walked through hell with a lot of that. A lot of my colleagues and friends, they've worked consistently, and I've had to, think I was going to be this wonder kid. I went to one of the best universities in America, and then came out and, I promptly didn't work. And for many years, and then I worked just enough, and then it was this. And, I like to say that I have a very unique experience on life, because I was driven around in a limousine, and then I drove the limo. And I'm not talking about Game Changers. I'm actually talking about, real life. And so it's like, I was blessed to come from where I came from, which was, you just put your boots on and you do your thing. But it's an experience when you're young, and you realize you've been living in a kind of cocoon. Like, I think you said the word cocoon, and it was like, it can be a rude awakening for many of us.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people, the way I see it, I suppose it's like when you get people that are in the military, and everything's done for them, and they've got their own life within the military, and then they leave the military, then they're in civvy street. So literally they don't know how to buy bread, and a lot of them do end up on the streets, misusing drugs, and it's really sad, because it's that sort of bridge from, being, this, great, child actor, I suppose, for people like Jerry Kramer, to then not knowing what else to do and how to do it. And it's really sad to think that. I mean, it's great to hear that you've not. Well, I don't know. We've got to wait for the book to come out. But I don't know. Your experiences, but
the way you talked about, that's a really strong comparison. With the structure of that. And I'll say this was my dear friend and colleague, and Jeffrey Nordling, who played Coach, Orion in Ducks 3. He was instrumental in, like, saving my ass and saving this guy in so many ways. And it's so funny to go full circle right now as he's debuting my play right now. So I'm this kid on Ducks 3, and I didn't know whether I should go to Hollywood. And, and at that point I was auditioning for everything, but I was like sitting in my chair, reading about Arthur Miller, reading about Harold Pinner. I was, somebody would tell me about, like, you should read this book by Sir Peter Brook. And I'm like, oh, I'll read that. Yeah. And, read this Alfred Hitchcock book. And then and I think he saw me, and he had gone to a conservatory, and he's like, kid, you probably should go to school, and learn to be a real artist. It seems like you're an artist. And that was a key moment in my life. So I left, like, I made an active choice to kind of leave it and go, what, I want to learn how to do this down the road. And I think if I hadn't have done that, I don't think I'd be alive today.
And it's definitely full circle with Jeffrey, because we've got to start talking about Brothers Play, because it's such an awesome piece of art. It really, really, really is. And Jeffrey, when I started to watch it, so I've had the pleasure, you let me watch the whole play, and I've actually watched it twice, because it's so well written, and it's so well acted as well. It's so immersive, captivating, funny, witty, quite serious in places, which I was like, whoa, okay. It took me on definitely a roller coaster journey, and it's just a stunning piece. So if you could talk about Brothers Play, what it is, and a bit about, what the journey of this play will be for the viewers.
Well, thanks for that, Brian. Jeez, I remember that one when I'm feeling lost in the journey of putting it up. Uh, uh, they, it, wow. It's, the play, not a lot of people, well, I don't know about the UK, but in America, 1 in 6 men are survivors of some form of sex abuse when they were young. And there's actually a great organization called 1 in 6, and and it's not talked about, and I think we're living in this time where we use phrases like toxic masculinity, and I think you started with we're in these dark times, and I think, if I'm honest, we as men, and we can make a big mess, and in our lives, to ourselves, to our families, to our communities, to the world, right? And I didn't realize it when I first started writing Brothers Plague. I was, talking about trying to make, myself and make people who've had experiences feel whole. And so when you've had a shattering experience, and then as I was writing it, I was going along realizing, oh, I'm talking about very important things here, about like what it's like to really try to find a path to healing and not continue cycles of violence, and whether the violence is visited upon ourselves, and when you talk about things that are traumatizing, especially for men, there's like, oh no, we don't talk about that. We don't talk about crap. I don't know what it's like in UK. And so, and then the more and more I did it, the more I realized, oh, well, this is really important. It's really important in this moment to have conversations about, what it means to be a man. And like, so I guess that all kind of started, and I knew intuitively that it had to be a rip-roaring, ruckusly ridiculous comedy, because I think what I didn't want to do was to do a piece that wasn't fun. And so, and also like, and let comedy be a way to soften the blow of what we're really talking about, which is, it is kind of, there's a comedy and there's a tragedy to the fact that in a single moment, lives can be shattered. And it's not the moment, it's the time that lives are interrupted, and what it takes to kind of steer back to the path. And I thought that was a very important conversation that needed to happen on a stage and eventually as a film. And what you watched was also, again, inspired when I was starting it out, and I put my own money into making that video happen, and of the reading. And I remember sending a picture of it to Emilio when I had my car full of gear. And he's like, dude, always bet on yourself. Because Emilio's a guy, who's decided to make his own films and make his point in life to make some work of worth. And I remember I sent him a photo. He's like, always bet on yourself, man. So Coach even inspired me with this one.
Excellent. I mean, I've got to say the cast. I mean, how did you get around to casting? Because the cast of this is just fantastic. I mean, is this going to be going on tour, or is this going to be our hope is to grow? Yeah, I'm sorry I interrupted you. Go ahead. Yeah, no, because literally this play because the thing is, theatre is one of those things that unfortunately with the pandemic it went away, and I even feel that before the pandemic, I think the theatre was declining quite a lot. And, forget CGI superhero movies. I think we need to go back to the basics of the art of word and performance on stage, because there's so much more heart and there's so much more feeling to it. And, I personally miss that, going to see plays and escaping for that time. So it's going to go on tour. Are you going to potentially maybe release that video? Would you do that in the future?
Yeah. To think that you think that highly of it is great, because we shot it in a day, and then I tried to edit it together over a months with the help of some incredible people. I believe theater, we're starving for it, and it's always been live performance where we all gather in a space to hear a story is as intrinsic to being human as when we were in a cave. And I, it's a sacred thing to me. There's a sense of community to it, and it's so interwoven. Like Shakespeare plays always even mention it too, to the plague. So the plague hits the theater first, but we're also the first place to come back. And our hope is to do a small production here, and then let it grow. I've watched this play be done by. I thought I wrote it for like 3 South Side Chicago Irish people, and then I have my friends who are like New York and they're Puerto Rican, and they're like, dude, I don't think you realize you wrote a Puerto Rican play. And I'm like, really? He's like, can we work on it? And so what I love about it is I think it works for, I just wanted to inspire great actors to have a field day. Most artists want to do something that's a little scary. And I think we go to the theater to participate in that kind of like, is this going to work out? So my hope would be that it would have a life. I would love to see it in Ireland, in the UK. I mean, oh my God, are you kidding me? I would. I think it's a story because it's also about institutional justice. There's been stories about priest abuse where they talk about the journalism. Oh, hey, I'm a journalist. Look at me. I solved the problem. There's been the talk about the priest who did the problems and all this stuff. They won all these awards, but there haven't been enough pieces about the wrecked lives that are left in the wake, and the way, and we watch the effects of maturity being stunted. And I think that's a stage-worthy thing.
I mean,
and unfortunately, it's probably universal.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, would there be a place to explore turning this into film? Turning this into...
Oh, yeah.
Because I want to see the rest of Jude's journey, because Jeffrey is just fantastic. And if you ever bring it over to the UK, Rob Nagel and Jamie Woolrab, is that did I pronounce that right?
Right.
I'm rubbish at pronunciations. Just make it. I just think the characters are just great. I mean, how do you work on characters like that? Because they're all so individually sculpted, and the development of the characters is fantastic. I mean, Thomas, for me, you often think that the loudest, most brashest character really stands out, but for me, Thomas, literally, I was more intrigued with because of the moments of silence, the moments that he didn't have to raise his voice. It was just fascinating. What sort of work did you have to go into to bring those characters to life?
Oh man, you're such a great interviewer. I love that you spotted that, because it is, Thomas is the quiet amidst the storm. That this play has been able. It was read for the National Organization of Men Against Sexism, and it was so cool to hear these therapists and these psychological people in academia recognize that this is a play about, men who are, and somebody finding a way that's not violent. And so it's, so Thomas is quiet amid the storm as he's trying to find his voice. And I remember for me, when I was developing it, it was about letting go of the victimhood, letting go of like the power of going from weak to strong. Like that felt like the strongest, what it's like to feel like you're the weakest and end up feeling in a way the strongest. And, but the development of the characters was, there's one of my favorite plays is by David Rabe called Hurly Burly. And I remember reading one time that he, and it's a lot about a lot of broken men, and they're all parts of the same whole. And that's what I realized I was writing, was that these were 3 parts. They were like a trinity. I'm still like got the the trinity thing, right? Like they're 3 parts of the same whole. And that, they're, when people who've experienced trauma, they can do, they can want to be ultra, like protective, like go and join the SAS and, need to fight everything. And then they can go to, they want to sexualize everything, or they feel like they're a victim and they just want to hide. And to me, those are the three parts that need to come whole. So I always imagined that they're all kind of like, and then when I wrote it, I realized that it's called Brothers Play because it's about, I think, the brotherhood of all of us in a way. I guess that's what I was wanting to write about. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, you know, when you finished writing this play, are you good at just stopping, or were there moments where you had to keep on going back and changing things? And at what point did you say, do you know what? It's done. It's perfect.
Damn, Brian, you're bringing out the big guns, man. This one's felt like a Swiss watch because it's so much about the chaos of and the comedy of denial and the way we render unimportant things so important, and then the quiet underneath it starts to bubble up. And that's what it's like when you've been fractured, right? That it was like a Swiss watch. So I didn't want it. Like once you started pulling on one thread, it was so delicate. So this play was unlike many other things I wrote, which is I tweaked it, but only to make sure that Thomas's journey became clearer and clearer and clearer. So and that also just related to me and my personal journey, even though this is obviously a work of fiction, but it was my own personal journey in my own life of, like, as I grew, so did Thomas's journey grew. And it was like, so that to me, and I think now you almost got to leave a wet edge. I used to paint houses back in the, like, my journeyman days when I was like in my 30s and 20s. And I remembered you keep a wet edge when you painted. And so there's certain things you got to leave for the actors when they're up on their feet. And
so lastly, on this piece on Brothers Play, when it goes on tour, is it going to be set up like it is in the video? With them stood at their pedestals. Is that how you envision?
Oh no! This will be fully staged, which is what we're doing right now. Which is why we're raising some money, which I totally realize I haven't talked about. yeah. So please give $1 or a pound.
So you're raising funds now to produce it into this full production. Is that via?
And then eventually, hopefully, a tour.
Yeah. So is that via Kickstarter, I presume?
Yeah, we'll have a Kickstarter link, which I'm sure we can give to you. And you can also visit Brothers Play. You can also visit brothersplay.com. That's one word, brothersplay.com. And it should redirect as well to our Kickstarter page. And the whole hope is to start small and grow and let it have a life. And it's a critical time right now for us, and to raise the funds that we need. So, and theater begins with community, and we wanted to invite anyone to if there's something about the values of the piece that speaks to them, or if they just want to see some ridiculous humor about things that should not be funny, it'd be great.
Can I suggest on one of the rewards on Kickstarters, maybe a signed script of the actual show, and then I will
add it.
Yes, excellent. And then I will definitely, me personally, I will support because it's great. It really, really is. So let's talk about conventions, because Wales Comic Con is coming up in December. You're appearing with a few other friends from the Mighty Ducks. So is this your very first UK convention?
Yes, it is.
Wow.
We've never the ducks are flying over the pond. We should TM that one. That's it. We are flying over the pond, and this is the first time we've done something like this. So this is going to be great.
I cannot wait.
We'll be together, and every time I go to a con and meet, I don't even think, like, yeah, sure, Ducks fans, but like they're like they're just ducks, It's like people are like, I grew up with this movie, and I'm like, so did I. I always find every time I meet people who love this movie, and the stories are so similar, and that makes me feel so good in this world. Like you're like, oh wow, this is a real thing here.
And have you been to a convention before?
Oh yeah. Well, I've even been to one of those horror ones. Yeah.
I mean, as a guest, have you actually been at conventions before as a guest?
Oh, have I been as a guest? I went one time to support a friend, and I've gone to like card and sports conventions because I'm a collector of that stuff, and it's very eerily similar. So, yeah. No, I think I've gone once to support a friend, but it's so many people. It's like, oh, that's a lot of people.
And do you know what? It's really weird now, post-pandemic. I remember going to the first convention after obviously everything with COVID, and it was the oddest experience because literally we've been used to what we're doing now. So then standing in front of an actual person, you don't realize how nervous you get now. And me, I was like, oh, I'm not used to talking to another human being. So I'm looking forward to that. So have you been practicing your autograph? Because I'm sure that you're going to be very, very busy.
I mean, that would be awful if I sit around practicing my autograph. That would feel so vain. I guess there is a little terror. You're like, am I going to mess this up? I always look at it like the thing that's the most important moment there is to just say hello and I would not be here today enjoying being able to do the creative things I do in my life were it not for the longevity of this franchise. And it's directly responsible for the time I've been able to devote to get good at writing. So I look at like, anything I can do to honor this that has changed my life so dramatically is a no-brainer.
Well, we can't wait. So beginning of December, Wales Comic Con. You can visit the website, which is walescomiccon.com. Get your tickets, get there, go and see the Mighty Ducks, and go and see Matt. One of my last questions before we bid farewell, and it's from one of Marguerite's projects, which is Wet Hot American Summer. There was a line in that film which I love, which is if your life was a movie, what title would it be?
Renaissance Man.
Awesome. Matt, you've been a great guest. It's been an absolute honor, and I've really had a blast. Keep safe, stay super, and I can't wait to see you in December in person.
Great. We'll go to the British Baking Show tent.
Definitely.